Will cabbage juice heal your stomach and peptic ulcers? Why do ulcers only appear in the top part of the stomach and not in the bottom part of the stomach? Why did your stomach develop ulcers now and not in a different part of your life? And why do none of your friends and family have stomach ulcers, yet you do? In this video, I'm going to show you the root cause of stomach ulcers and some tips and tricks you can use to get rid of them as fast as possible. Because there's one big missing secret that you're missing out on. Because I've seen people drink cabbage juice and get better, and I've seen people drink cabbage juice and not get better. There's one big secret to healing your stomach ulcers, and I'm going to share that with you in this video. Hi, I'm Mike the Heal Your Gut Guy. I healed myself of Crohn's, and I have also helped many people heal from stomach ulcers, peptic ulcers, duodenal ulcers. They form for a very specific reason, and I want to share that reason with you because if you don't know this, it's literally impossible to get better. So, the first question we need to understand is why do duodenal ulcers, why do peptic ulcers only form in the top part of the stomach? Why don't the ulcers form down here? You think gravity would pull all the acid down here and it would form ulcers down here. Ulcers never form in the bottom part of the stomach. They only form in the top part of the stomach. And this is because these are two different tissues. I follow something called German New Medicine. It studies embryology, and these two tissues originate from different germ layers from the embryo. This originates from the endoderm, the oldest part of our oldest tissues, and this originates from the ectoderm, the newest tissues. And so stomach ulcers are notorious for showing up during times of stress. What stress in your life triggered your stomach ulcers? What are you stressed out about now? It's going to fall under two categories of stress. So if you're a male, 90% of the time, it's going to be territorial anger, something you are angry about that involves your territory. Maybe it's your work, your workplace, where you live, your family, your friends. It could be, what are you angry about? It's something you're actively angry about. And when the burning is most intense, that's when you're going to be most angry. So you got to understand, all stress in our life, it's a threat to our survival. And our body wants to survive. So what it does is it puts an organ into overdrive to help overcome this stressful situation. And so what happens with territorial anger for men, it's an identity conflict for females. It could also be a territorial anger for females as well, because their hormone status is played with quite a bit with birth control pills and pregnancy and stuff like that. So we're looking for a territorial anger or an identity conflict. Like, a lot of women get it when they become pregnant because all of a sudden they're like, I don't know if I'm going to be a stay-at-home mom or if I'm going to go back to work afterwards. Like, they're in conflict in what they're going to do with their life. They can't make a decision. They don't know what their identity is anymore. But for males, it's a territorial anger. They're angry about something. So what happens when we experience this and we're conflict active, this tissue responds with cell loss. That's how these ulcers form, seemingly out of nowhere for no reason. It's not like someone went down there and poked holes in there. They slowly form depending on the conflict activity. The more intense this conflict for a person is, the more intense the cell loss is here. So ask yourself right now, what was the stress that is occurring, in my heartburn? Is it It could be a territorial anger if you're male. It's probably a territorial anger if you're a male. If you're a female, it can be identity. If you're a left-handed female, it's most likely an identity conflict. But there's so many things messing with the female hormone status that it could be a territorial anger conflict as well. So look for those two things. Ask yourself, what was stressful? The heartburn is a conflict active symptom. So it's something that's stressing you out, something that you're obsessing about now, right here and now. So this answers the question, why do ulcers only form at the top of the stomach and not at the bottom of the stomach? Because these two types of tissues are different and they respond to conflict differently. This is an indigestible something. I can't stomach this. I can't digest this. And the way this bottom tissue responds is with cell proliferation. And these extra gut cells develop extra digestive juices to help you digest this hard to digest thing in your life. But for heartburn, it's a different type of tissue. So it responds differently. It's from the newer part of the brain. It originates from the newer germ layers. And this tissue responds with cell loss first, and then cell proliferation in the healing phase once the conflict gets resolved. But if you have ulcers, you are conflict active. So the reason why cabbage juice is so popular right now for treating these ulcers is there was this old doctor, I think he practiced in the 1940s, his name was Cheney, and he used cabbage juice to heal peptic ulcers. But there was another aspect to his treatment plan. So one of the studies he did involved prison inmates. And you can only imagine someone suffering from a territorial anger or an identity conflict in prison. Territorial anger, the guard beat me. Territorial anger, my prison cell, there's so many instances where you can experience territorial anger when you're in prison. And essentially what they would do with these inmates is that they would get transferred from the prison to the hospital. So they'd almost be on a little mini vacation. And then they would just get, it's literally like they were getting pampered, like they were on vacation. They went from hell to heaven. And so that would resolve the conflict and heal the ulcers. But he did do a randomized trial where he just gave one group of patients like a placebo, and he gave the other group of patients cabbage juice. And everyone who got cabbage juice got better. Literally 100% of them got better when they drank cabbage juice. And then in the other group, only 33% of the patients had full remission of the ulcers. And then the other 2/3, they still had ulcers, yet the stress had been resolved. So that does tell me that there's something about this cabbage juice that promotes healing. So the big idea I want to get across to you guys, that cabbage juice isn't this magic cure. If anything, it's something that promotes healing. So for example, if you get a cut on your arm, do you think it's going to heal faster if you rub coconut oil on it and you keep it nice and clean and you're nourishing the area versus rubbing it in dirt all day? So I think this is what cabbage juice is doing. It's giving the body more nutrients in order to heal the ulcers. But I've seen so many examples of people with ulcers, stomach ulcers, where they drink cabbage juice and things get worse. And it's not the cabbage juice's fault. It depends on how the person's viewing foods. It depends on the stress in the person's life. If someone's going through a territorial anger at work, they're really angry at their boss is riding them, blah, 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 and they're trying this cabbage juice, it's not going to stop. The ulcer formation depends on the intensity of the conflict. So if it's just, my boss gives me a little bit of a hard time, it's no big deal, there's only a little bit of cell loss. But if your boss is he just humiliated you in front of your coworkers, and it looks like you're going to get fired and it's not fair and you're very angry about it, there's going to be lots of cell loss. There's going to be lots of burning pain. And Drinking cabbage juice might reduce those symptoms. It might help healing, but think about it, like what's doing the healing here? Your cells are dictating whether there's ulceration or there's proliferation, there's repair. And that's controlled by your brain. And whether that's happening or not, this program that's controlling that process of cell loss and cell proliferation is dependent on the territorial anger conflict, whether it's active or resolved, or the identity conflict, whether it's active or resolved. How do you resolve the territorial anger at work? Maybe you find a new job. Maybe you talk to your boss and you work things out. It just depends. How do you fix the identity conflict? You just had a baby. You don't know whether you should go back to work or take care of the baby. You choose and you go and you somehow make peace with it. So you address the problem as best as you can. All right, guys. So that's all the information I have for you for peptic and duodenal ulcers. This is related to a territorial anger or an identity conflict. And when this gets resolved, the ulcers, the pain, it's going to change. Burning pain is conflict active. It's going to change from a burning pain to a pressure pain. The pressure pain is good. You're also going to get H. pylori. H. pylori is good. In the healing phase, the body needs help with the cell proliferation. It's got to replace this cell loss. And it does that with the help with H. pylori. So when you get diagnosed with gastritis and H. pylori after heartburn, this is a good thing because this is the cell proliferation making up for all that cell loss. So stay calm if your symptoms tend to change. As far as diet goes, when you're dealing with these peptic ulcers and you're trying to resolve the stress, any food that you eat is going to cause burning pain because when you eat food enters the stomach and it stimulates the stomach to create stomach acid, and the stomach acid gets into the ulcers. So it's not the food causing the burning pain, it's just there happens to be holes and ulcers in your stomach, and it's kind of common sense there. So guys, that's all I have for you. Cabbage juice can help heal your peptic ulcers, but remember, it starts in the psyche. What is the territorial anger or the identity conflict in your life triggering the cell loss in your stomach?